Referendum night was a victory for the sovereignty of the people.
The British people have spoken and the answer is we're out.
Our top politicians pledged to listen. At last night's Lord Mayor's banquet, Theresa May heralded life outside the EU.
We will do everything we can to make the UK outside the EU the most attractive place for businesses to invest and grow.
Earlier this month, Jeremy Corbyn insisted Labour too heard what the British people had to say.
We accept and respect the decision of the referendum to leave the European Union.
But, and there was a but, notice some strings attached.
But there must be transparency and accountability to Parliament about the government's plans.
Those comments follow a High Court ruling earlier this month, which, unless overturned by the Supreme Court, could lead to Parliament debating Brexit as early as January and being asked for its approval for formal negotiations to begin. That has created a new opportunity for less than enthusiastic MPs and peers who campaigned against Brexit to have their say. The government is confident it can win a Commons vote on legislation to trigger the UK's withdrawal from the EU, but it could be hampered by the Lords.
And here's why. We've spoken to a number of Labour, Lib Dem, crossbench and even Conservative peers who claim that in the House of Lords there's a majority who want concessions from the government before they agree to support triggering the UK's exit from the EU. One of them suggested it could be something like the 5 tests that were used to judge whether we should join the euro, with membership of the single market top of the list and other proposals which mirror closely what we have today. It appears the peers want to create a yardstick against which a final deal could be judged and possibly fall short, which they say could mean that the initial decision to leave the EU could itself be revoked.
The government should produce, before it triggers Article 50, a document, might be called a white paper, but basically a document saying we're about to trigger Article 50, these are the kind of things we want to achieve, and this is how we're planning to set about it.
But the government believes detailing their plans at this stage could wreck the negotiations.
Our approach isn't designed to wreck the negotiations. My personal view is that by this time next year, a majority of people in the country may well have concluded that it's in their and the country's interest that we don't leave the EU.
Some peers want more time before formal negotiations begin.
I don't think anybody's ever explained for us what the end of March deadline was all about. In fact, we've got important elections in the rest of Europe in the second half of next year, and I had certainly always assumed that it would make sense to wait till after that.
But one expert believes any attempt by Parliament to challenge Brexit would be flawed.
The main effect of amendments from MPs or peers would be to delay the legislation. This would be the worst issue on which to choose a fight, because the Lords is an unelected chamber, and here they are not opposing just the House of Commons or just the government, they're opposing the will of the people. The outcome would be, in my view, not a restriction of the government's negotiating powers, but a further restriction on the powers of the Lords.
Brexit campaigners point to the scrutiny already underway in Parliament.
Barely a day goes by at the moment without some House of Lords committee or other having ministers and civil servants and others before it asking all kinds of questions about Brexit and the renegotiation and what our relationship will look like after Brexit. There's a huge number of opportunities for the House of Lords to scrutinise what's going on, but in terms of triggering Article 50, the British people made their position utterly clear on June the 23rd, and the House of Lords needs to accept that.
The Supreme Court could still prevent the Lords having a say at this stage. If not, we could well see a first, the sovereignty of Parliament pitted against the sovereignty of the people.
And joining us now is the Shadow Leader of the House of Lords, Angela Smith.